Sub-Zero.
I am reborn.
If the newest Mortal Kombat 2 trailer proves anything, it is that this sequel knows exactly what fans wanted the first time around. I'm talking bigger fights, nastier finishers, a louder sense of scale, and finally, the tournament itself stepping into the spotlight. But buried inside all that chaos is one of those small details longtime fans instantly clocked: a quick cameo from one of the franchise's original creators. And honestly, that tiny moment says a lot about what this movie is trying to do. When Simon McCoy's Mortal Kombat hit theaters in 2021, it arrived under rough conditions. The pandemic crushed normal box office momentum. Theaters were still closed or running at limited capacity. And the film ended its global run with $84.4 million against a $55 million budget. On paper, that may not have looked dominant, but the bigger story happened at home. On HBO Max, the movie became Warner Brothers' most watched title from the studio's entire 2021 day and date slate. That kind of digital turnout mattered. It helped lock in a sequel and even pushed early development on a possible third movie. Now Mortal Kombat 2 is walking into theaters with something to prove. And this final trailer makes that mission feel obvious. Even if the blood is clearly CG heavy, the movie is selling itself on impact, excess, and confidence. This time, the threat centers on the fate of Earthrealm. While Karl Urban's Johnny Cage seems to take on a major leadership role as the champions prepare for war. What really jumps out is that the footage is no longer dancing around the premise. Instead of just teasing the mythology, the trailer leans straight into the Mortal Kombat tournament itself. That alone feels like a direct response to the biggest criticism of the 2021 film. Fans wanted the real event. They wanted higher stakes, cleaner purpose, and a structure that felt closer to the games. This sequel appears determined to give them exactly that. The trailer also puts the brutality front and center. Fatalities are everywhere. The scale looks bigger. The tone is more aggressive. And one of the most intriguing pieces is the apparent showdown building between Scorpion and the reborn Sub-Zero, now moving through the story as Noob Saibot. If that conflict lands the way fans hope, it could become one of the sequel's biggest selling points. And then there's that blink-can-you-miss-it surprise. If you watch closely, Mortal Kombat co-creator Boon appears briefly as a bartender serving Johnny Cage. It is a tiny cameo. Sure, but for fans who have been with this franchise since the arcade era, it feels like a sly little reward. Those are the kinds of details that tell me this sequel understands the people is trying to win over. In a lot of ways, Mortal Kombat 2 looks like a course correction. Much of the criticism aimed at the first movie centered on the introduction of Cole Young, played by Louis Tan, and on the decision to build the story around events leading to the tournament rather than the tournament itself. That approach left a lot of fans feeling like they got set up instead of payoff. This time, the film seems to be correcting that by throwing Earthrealm's fighters directly into the kind of high-stakes conflict the games have always promised, especially with Martin Ford's Shao Kahn looming over everything. Johnny Cage changes the energy in a major way too. In the games, Cage has always worked as a perfect audience-centric character. He is funny, cocky, self-aware, and still capable of backing it all up in a fight. Bringing him into the sequel does more than add charisma. It gives the movie a natural point of access for viewers while still embracing all the ridiculous, violent, larger-than-life mythology that makes Mortal Kombat what it is. And let's be real, if Cage works, he could end up stealing the entire movie. The roster expansion matters too. This trailer makes it clear that the sequel is leaning harder into game-faithful characters instead of relying too heavily on original inventions. New additions include Adeline Rudolph as Kitana, Tati Gabrielle as Jade, Damon Harriman as Quan Chi, and Onathu Nguyen as Sindel. Those names are not random. They are core pieces of Mortal Kombat mythology, and their presence signals a sequel that is much more aligned with what fans actually associate with this franchise. The Arcana powers introduced in the first movie are still part of the mythology here, so the thread has not been erased. But this trailer makes one thing very clear. The real focus now is action, spectacle, and carnage. The marketing is practically built around the promise of fatalities, and with their rating leaning into strong, bloody violence and gore. The movie is delivering exactly the kind of excess Mortal Kombat fans expect when they buy a ticket. That is why everything about this sequel feels louder, sharper, and more self-assured. It is not hiding from the video game identity anymore. It is leaning into it. The tone feels more in sync with the series. The characters feel more recognizable. The stakes feel more immediate. And most importantly, the movie finally seems interested in giving audiences the full experience rather than just a prologue to it. From a box office standpoint, this release could easily outperform the 2021 film. According to projections mentioned in the coverage, Mortal Kombat II is expected to open somewhere between $40 and $55 million in its first 3 days alone. If that happens, it would outpace the entire domestic box office total of the 2021 movie, which finished with $40.3 million in the United States and $80.4 million worldwide. Considering the first movie was released during deeply compromised conditions, those numbers were respectable. But this time, the theatrical path is much cleaner. That cleaner release strategy matters. Mortal Kombat 2 is getting a wide, exclusive, properly timed theatrical rollout, and that could make a massive difference. The sequel's budget reportedly lands around $68 million, which is more than $10 million above the first film. That means expectations are higher, but the renewed marketing push suggests Warner Brothers believes this one can do serious business. If the movie gets anywhere near or above the $122 million worldwide total earned by the 1995 Mortal Kombat, it starts entering a much more interesting conversation. Timing may help too. Coming after the success of another major video game movie phenomenon, the marketplace is more open than ever to this kind of adaptation when audiences feel like the material is being handled the right way. And that may be the biggest thing this trailer communicates. Not just that the sequel is bigger, but that the people behind it finally seem locked in on what makes Mortal Kombat work in the first place at the end of the day. The final trailer for Mortal Kombat 2 feels like a direct answer to almost every major complaint aimed at the 2021 reboot. More tournament, more iconic fighters, more brutal action, more fan-first energy. And if the finished movie can deliver on even most of what this footage promises, then this sequel has a real shot at becoming the adaptation fans wanted from the beginning. Mortal Kombat 2 is set to hit theaters on May 8, 2026. And right now, this looks less like a simple follow-up and more like a real test. Not just of whether the franchise can win at the box office, but of whether Hollywood has finally figured out how to make Mortal Kombat feel like Mortal Kombat again. That is where I leave it for now. But if this trailer hit you the way it hit me, then this fight may be a lot bigger than people think. Stay sharp, stay ready, and I'll see you in the next one.